Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me today. This video will be our next video in the series on Universalism Simplified. It will also be our third video in the mini-series that I started responding to an article I found online entitled 13 Problems with Universalism. I will link this article in the description for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like and share this video, talk to me in the comments, check out my description box for links to my Facebook, Instagram, discussion group, Patreon, and the introduction to my free class, See the Creator, which will begin on this channel July 26th. I'm so excited about that. Getting to today's topic, we're going to be diving deeper into the subject of free will and whether or not universalism infringes upon free will. Yes, I have touched on this topic in previous videos, but there's still so much more to be said about it. Quoting from the article, universalism is deterministic. If salvation is universal and automatic, then ultimately there is no free will. Your eternity is determined, whether you like it or not. Alright, let's start by looking at the definition of the word deterministic. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of deterministic is relating to the philosophical doctrine that all events, including human action, are ultimately determined by causes regarded as external to the will. But this doesn't quite add up, because universalists are not saying that everything is predetermined. We are saying that one thing is off the table, one thing in a myriad of possibilities. Unending, eternal torment is off the table. Somebody being in a state of mind and consciousness where they are disconnected from God forever is off the table. And if you want to call that determinism, I guess you can, but I think it's a bit of a stretch. That would sort of be like saying that a person can go out and get any job they want. As long as they have the skills and the knowledge, they can become an astronaut, a doctor, a professional hockey player. Now, obviously, this analogy is flawed. It doesn't take into consideration systemic racism or other socioeconomic issues. So already free will is being called into question. It's oftentimes not so simple as just making a choice. However, let's assume that everybody is on equal footing and could go out and get whatever job they wanted. Saying that our choices must be predetermined because we can't choose to go to hell forever is like saying, well, everything must be predetermined because I can't choose to go out and become a seeing eye dog. Well, we must not have free will because we can't choose to become this one thing that's impossible. When discussing the topic of free will versus determinism, people tend to take a hard stance on one side or the other, as if these two things are mutually exclusive. But reality is just not that clear-cut. In almost any situation you could imagine up, free will is limited within a broader predetermined framework. Both some level of free will and some level of determinism exist simultaneously. For instance, if you go shopping at a grocery store, you will be able to choose what food you want to buy. But your choice will be limited by your budget, what brands the store carries, any dietary restrictions that you have, what other shoppers have left on the shelves. You won't be able to purchase office supplies or pet supplies or clothing at a store that only sells food. No matter how much you might want to freely choose to buy carrots, if the store is out of carrots, then you won't have a choice in the matter. And would you then say, how dare they infringe upon my free will like this? How dare they predetermine what I can and cannot buy? No, of course not, because you understand the framework that you are working within. Also, oftentimes consequences are built into a framework to intentionally limit free will. If you play on a soccer team, for instance, sure, you can choose to throw the ball with your hands, but there are penalties for that. Do it enough times and you'll get kicked off the team. You or I would not be allowed to play soccer using our hands because there are consequences in place to prevent that. And I would argue that this is how all of reality is set up. Absolute free will does not exist. You or I cannot choose to do anything we want without limitation. You can't choose to flap your arms and fly, or to breathe underwater, or to live forever, for instance. We have free will to an extent, but as in the store analogy, we are choosing from a set of predetermined options. And as in the sports example, when we don't make the choices that are in our best interests, that align with truth, with what actually exists, there are consequences in place that will either prevent us or strongly discourage us from making certain choices. This doesn't mean that everything or even most things are predetermined. It means that we are existing within a framework that is designed to allow us as much free choice as possible, while limiting options that would not serve the ultimate goal, which is knowing God. So what framework are we working within, spiritually speaking? The truth is very simple. God is one. This is the framework that we are existing within. God is one means God is infinite. Nothing exists outside of God. God is the source of life that fills, surrounds, and sustains everything. And when we recognize this, when we see and treat ourselves and others as part of the one, in other words, when we treat them with love, we experience reality, joy, peace, and fulfillment. When we do not see and treat ourselves and others as part of the one, we experience an illusion. We create a world out of our own imagination in which we and others are separate, limited, lacking, bad, wrong, guilty. In this illusion, we experience suffering, fear, emptiness, desire, lack, need. We are allowed to choose the illusion because we are here to learn about God. In other words, we are here to learn about truth, about the true nature of reality. And we can choose to learn about God either through direct experience of what God is, or through direct experience of what God is not. Valuable lessons can be learned both ways. Here's an example. You can learn about the necessity of water for life, either through nourishing yourself with water and enjoying how great you feel, or through depriving yourself of water and experiencing how your body reacts. Eventually, any person with a sane mind will choose to drink because their thirst will drive them to do so. This is the purpose of free will, to help us learn through trial and error what is the true nature of reality. What is God really like? We are spiritual beings having a physical experience, learning about reality, about truth, within the broader framework of parameters set by this truth. God is all that actually exists. So like the soccer player could choose to throw the ball with their hands a few times before getting kicked off the team, we can choose to learn about what God is not through experiencing the consequences of living out an illusion for only so long before the consequences become too great to bear. It is impossible to freely choose something that goes against reality forever, because such a thing doesn't actually exist. Similarly to how you can't choose to buy carrots at a store that is out of them, or how you can't choose to become a seeing eye dog because you, my friend, are a human. You cannot choose to reject God forever because God is all that exists. To reject God is a metaphysical impossibility, because to choose anything is to choose God whether you realize it or not. I would argue that metaphysically speaking, the only way that free will can exist at all is because we are eternally secure. From our perspective, it appears that we are making choices that will affect events in our future. We are given this opportunity because it creates desirable conditions for growth. But God already knows the beginning from the end. God is outside of time. From God's perspective, everything is happening simultaneously. That can be hard for us to wrap our minds around, but logically speaking, if God is one, and everything that exists is an emanation of God, there is nowhere to go outside of God. This means that not only will we all inevitably end up right back where we started, in oneness with God, more accurately, from God's perspective, we never left. Free will is a gift that we're given so that we can choose to learn something about God through contrast, through experiencing God's opposite. something that doesn't actually exist and cannot be sustained forever. Let's address this statement by the author of the article. Your eternity is determined whether you like it or not. I would argue for us to be in a state of mind to not like the fact that all things are destined to work out for good in the end wouldn't actually be free will at all. That would be like a child not liking the fact that their parent has already determined that they can't run out into the road and get hit by a car. Or somebody who is drunk not liking the fact that their friends have already determined they will not drive themselves home. In these two examples, the people in question are not actually making a free choice because their judgment is impaired, causing them to think they want something that they don't actually want, because they don't understand the full ramifications of the choice that they're making. Keeping that in mind, let's ask this question. Who exists that does not want God? And who, with a truly free will, would not choose God? Earlier, we talked about water and thirst and how you can learn about the importance of water for your health either through drinking or not drinking water. But either way, ultimately, the lessons will drive you to drink water. Let's say that a person was crossing a desert and dying of thirst when an oasis appears in front of them. And driven mad by the heat, this person, for whatever reason, refuses to drink the water. Maybe they've been convinced that it would be better to die. Maybe they think that the water is poisoned. Either way, they are not thinking clearly and they are not operating out of a free will. And this is the equivalent of anybody who freely chooses to reject God. There's only one desire that exists in the entire universe, and that desire is to know God. When we look for God, we are looking for a state of being, which we measure through feelings of peace and satisfaction. Every single thing that we do throughout our lives is in search of this inner state of being. It is in search of God. Every single choice by every single person that has ever lived in the entire world has been in search of God, whether we realize it or not. We are all using our free will to bring about situations in our life that we perceive will fulfill that ache within us. We are all using our free will to find God. Even those who do horrible things do what they do because they are trying to satisfy an inner urge or directive that has developed because of their need for God. The universe is designed to drive people to make the right choices through consequences. But let's say that some people don't learn this lesson. Let's say that some people become so twisted through the suffering of their life events that they become like the dying person in the desert refusing to drink the water. Let's extrapolate and say that this person, for some reason, decided, I will never drink this water for all of eternity. I will never choose God for all of eternity. I want to go to hell and be separated from God for all of eternity. This person is still choosing what they think, for whatever reason, out of their impaired will bring them the satisfaction that they are seeking. This person is not seeing clearly and therefore is not choosing freely. No one in a right mind would freely choose eternal torment, eternal separation from God. In short, every choice is a choice for God. Every choice is either one of two things: a choice for God, made with a truly free will, or a misguided choice away from God, made without the full foreknowledge of what the consequences of that choice will be. And therefore, this choice is also a choice for God. It is impossible to choose other than God because God is all that exists and all that we want. In a sense, the fact that we are all choosing God with every choice we make every single day of our lives, because we are all searching for God and trying to bring about that sense of inner peace and satisfaction. So in a sense, this choice for God has been predetermined. Predetermined by the boundaries and framework of reality. Predetermined by the nature of who we are. But to say that some outside force is infringing on our free will by forcing us to choose God would be like saying that gravity is infringing upon our free will by forcing us to keep our feet on the ground, or that our hunger is taking away our free will by determining that we must eat to live. God is one. We are part of that. We all sense that and we seek God innately. That is reality. That is truth. That's just the way it is. In closing, I would like to make the clarification that I am not saying that there is no hell or that people cannot choose hell. Christianity teaches that there are two options in the afterlife, heaven and hell, and that both are eternal. You make the choice once and that's it. I believe that God is infinite, and the universe is God's expression of God's self, or God's knowing of God's self. This earth is just one place among millions that we could choose to come and have an experience. And I don't think that there are only two final eternal destinies. I think that there are many places that we can go after this life to further learn and grow as spiritual beings. And I would say that many hells exist. As many hells as we can conjure up in our mind and emotions are there to be experienced by those who make that choice. So in this sense, I'd go even farther than Christians who believe that there is only one hell. However, I also don't think that free will ends with death. I think that our journey of evolution continues. Hell is not ultimate reality, and therefore it's not a final destination. It's an experience that can be chosen as we are seeking God and learning about what God is not. In this sense, I take free will even farther than Christians do. I don't think that our free will ever ceases. It simply comes into more of a clear focus as we grow past our illusions and understand what it is that we really want. We all freely want God, and we are all trying to choose God, and God is all that exists. So ultimately, God is all that can be chosen. In the words of David Bentley Hart, I do in fact believe in hell, though only in the sense of a profound and imprisoning misery that we impose upon ourselves by rejecting the love that alone can set us free. Practically all of us go through life as prisoners of our own egos. Hence, a secret that we all too often hide from ourselves is that we walk in hell every day. There is, though, another and greater secret too. We also walk in heaven, also every day. This too we can occasionally see, though usually only in rare moments of spiritual wakefulness or imaginative transport. Redemption, then, if there is such a thing, must consist ultimately in a conversion of the heart so complete that one comes to see heaven for what it is, and thus also comes to see precisely where one formerly had perceived only the fires of hell, the transfiguring glory of infinite love. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching.